Hey everybody, welcome back to the course. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to look at something which I think a lot of students struggle with, or at least it's something that a lot of students think is very important in the exam, and they're right, and that is paraphrasing and synonyms, trying to avoid the repetition of vocabulary when writing our task 2 essay. So this lecture will talk about how to demonstrate a wide range of vocabulary to make sure that we're achieving band 7 or above in lexical resource. But this lecture will talk about 5 different ways that you can paraphrase. So not just synonyms, but lots of other ways that we can paraphrase as well, so that you should have a great number of different ways that you can paraphrase by the end of this lecture. So the first thing to talk about is the band descriptors. Just a quick reminder here of what the examiners are looking for. If you want to achieve a band 7 in lexical resource, you must use a sufficient range of vocabulary to allow some flexibility and precision. The key word there is range, a sufficient range, not an adequate range, which is band 6, but a sufficient range. So there must be enough range. So to achieve a band 8 in lexical resource, you must use a wide range. So not just enough, but actually more than enough. Show you have a wide range of vocabulary. Basically, the greater your range, the higher your score. So let's get started by looking at paraphrasing tip number 1. And of course, it's the most obvious one, synonyms. Synonyms are basically words which are very similar to other words. Sometimes they mean the same thing, sometimes they're just very similar. So it's important to remember, firstly, that there are many ways that we can paraphrase language. Synonyms are very useful, and this is why a thesaurus can be very helpful when you are practicing. A thesaurus is like a dictionary, but instead of definitions, it just lists similar words or synonyms. Now, if you don't own a thesaurus, you can use an online one. So try it now. Look up the word range and then the word synonym. Range synonyms. What do you find coming up? Array, assortment, collection, diversity, mixture, and variety are just a few of the words that appear under the word range. Do make sure you are researching the appropriate context of the word. Range can have a couple of different definitions, so do make sure you're looking at the right context of the word. So how can we use this when paraphrasing? Let's have a look at an introduction here. Synonyms particularly important in the introduction. We know that we need to paraphrase when we write our introduction to the task. Here is a question. A task 2 question. Some people believe that visitors to other countries should follow local customs and behaviours. Others disagree and think that the host country should welcome cultural differences. Plenty of words here that we can paraphrase. Let's see how we've done so. Some people think, not believe, but think that tourists, not visitors, but tourists to other countries should abide by, rather than follow, local rules rather than customs and behaviour. Others dispute this instead of disagree and think that the host country should embrace rather than welcome cultural diversity rather than differences. Loads of different synonyms coming through here. Now, you do need to be careful because sometimes you can't just insert a synonym directly into the sentence. You do need to check that it makes sense. Certainly finding someone to correct your work, a tutor or a native speaker, can be the best way to do this. Also, the above introduction is okay, but it's clearly very reliant on a thesaurus. This can easily make language sound a bit unnatural. Now, check out Joey from Friends' letter. There's a link in the resources to get an idea of how a thesaurus can be misused. Very funny video. It really does highlight why you shouldn't be too dependent on a thesaurus. Now, paraphrasing tip number 2. Change up the word order. So the best way to paraphrase is to mix different paraphrasing skills together. Don't overuse or only use synonyms, but mix them with other techniques. One of those being changing the word order. Let's look at that task sentence again, just the first sentence here. Some people believe that visitors to other countries should follow local customs and behaviour. How have we mixed up the word order? Well, let's have a look. Some people think that local customs and characteristics, still using those synonyms, should be followed by tourists when they go to other countries. So what have we done here? Well, we've used a mix of synonyms, think, characteristics, tourists, and different word order. In this case, we've moved part of the sentence into the passive voice. So instead of the active, other countries should follow, we've turned it into the passive, characteristics should be followed by tourists. That's one way that you can change word order. English is fairly flexible, not entirely flexible, but fairly flexible. So think about how you can change word order when you're looking at your tasks. Right. Paraphrasing tip number 3, word formation. Another way we can find greater range is to modify word formation.